Hey, it's Terry, your favorite no bullshit artist and business coach, and you're listening to Terry Talks, where we discuss all things taboo, uncovering art industry nonsense, grounding you in confidence and leadership to run an arts business with unwavering power and grit. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Terry Talks. I want to spend today talking a little bit about the Takashi Murakami breakdown. And if you did not see the YouTube video that went viral, actually, excuse me, it was on TikTok. There was a TikTok live that he recorded himself that went viral. And I'm not actually sure how it was saved because he doesn't seem to have a TikTok account, or maybe I couldn't find it. Anyway, in the viral video, he really describes his mental state and talks about himself in it was actually really disturbing to see and kind of triggering, especially for someone who struggles with their own mental health challenges, and to see someone in such a low space who is this coveted contemporary artist, pop artist, some people call him the new age Andy Warhol. It was really quite jolting and disturbing for a lot of us to watch, and I wanted to discuss this not only because the art world doesn't really talk about like the part of artists that truly public artists that are in sort of the celebrity realm. And so just a little bit about Takashi. He's gotten a lot of slack and a lot of hate from Japanese culture, saying that he's been appropriating and that he is a sellout, especially just like wants to do all of this for money. Many of us know him as doing tons of collaborations with Kanye West, doing his first album, and Louis Vuitton. And Marc Jacob is actually the one who kind of discovered him and gave him his big break. He noticed that he was doing like all of these really interesting Louis Vuitton drawings, and was just like, this Japanese style, cartoonish style, was really interesting to him. Something else that really crazy that I learned about him was that part of his sort of business experimentation was buying and collecting other people's artworks. He wanted to see like what sold, what didn't, and why. And so he actually almost went into bankruptcy, buying $70 million worth of art. And once he kind of realized that he was going to go into bankruptcy in 2020, he decided, like, the business side, I need some help on the business side of things, which is, I applaud him for understanding that part. Obviously, when you have that much money, you want to play, you want to just revel in your own likes, and obviously collecting art for an artist is, hey, fuck, if I had an extra $20 million, I would be buying art up the ass. So, the vision that we have as artists who have really, like, if we consider ourselves not yet successful, or not at the level of these artists, right, who have crazy representation, who are hella in demand, we see them in such a different light. It's like they're in this fantasy world. They've made it. They're no longer in the starving artist pool of people. And so we see things so different than what Takashi Murakami in this video that he was describing to us. And I think that's why it went so viral, because it was so incredibly raw and real. We don't see these things unless the paparazzi is fucking surrounding you like Paris Hilton walking down the street, right? And Murakami is not doing that. He is not going to freaking Tao to have lunch. And so there were a couple of questions that really came up for me in the world of art, but like in the economy part, in the cultural part, in the business part, because we're talking about people who are partnering up with major institutions who are either gallerists who are partnering up with the museums, and then they are commissioning Takashi for a new collection that he has to do in X amount of time. And so these are some of the questions that I was thinking. I'm like, are our artists being taken into consideration when you get to that level? Are they being cared for by these cultural museum institutions that partner with them? Or are they being used as workhorses? And I'm still sort of trying to answer that question, because obviously I'm not in that world. I'm not, an artist who is even working with these people, because right, that's not my goal right now. But Takashi has this like insider perspective and real time perspective of what he is almost like owing to these institutions that kind of have him by the balls, right? That are helping him to sell his work, that are helping to give him visibility, that are celebrating him in many ways. He does not feel that way. And all of this is based on, my interpretation of this cry for help. He's literally like dogging himself out. He's calling himself stupid. He says he hates himself. He says that there are probably people in his space who hate him too, and he wants to get out of this sort of this feeling. He wants to break free of this feeling. He hates his life. And he was talking about how he has to make 130 paintings that year. And, he's like, how the fuck am I going to do this? Like, how can I just be this workhorse? He also describes people wanting to do, studio visits, and how he's like, my space is not a museum. And then he shows us a corner where he has his little like bunk bed. And then he goes on and he shows us weird things that he's been collecting, which is he's been collecting pieces of his own skin from when he got sunburnt. He's collecting calluses from his feet. He's been collecting nail clippings. And so it's like a very, very kind of like, it's an odd thing to watch. And how he's gotten to this place of like feeling a little sort of like not in this realm is, I wonder what has been taken such a toll on him. Is it the work? Is it the demand? Is it the amount of fame that he has accumulated by his, obviously his incredible talent, which, you disagree or agree with that. On the other hand, I was thinking like, I notice that a lot of the work that I do with my clients is self-advocacy and leadership. And are artists setting boundaries for what they can and will handle, such as deadlines, such as the amount of work, such as who they answer to and who they don't, what opportunities we take, and which ones we just need to just say no to. And I do find that, there's been such a stereotypical culture around artists being at the beck and call of galleries, of us, having this dire want or need to be represented by a prestigious gallery in order to make us feel like we've made it. But in actuality, right, these galleries and these institutions would not exist without us. And that's the place from where we have to dig for that empowerment. And if we don't do that, if we aren't changing the way that galleries and partnerships accept us and include us in more of a partnership way, a real genuine collaborative way, we will continue to perpetuate that stereotype that we are at their beck and call, that we need them. And so they take advantage of us. And, a lot of the times, people will hire an agent, or people will, we hope that you are represented by someone who genuinely has your best interest at heart. But we also have to be the leaders of our own arts business. And, that's part of what I work on with my clients is like, okay, are you looking at the fine print when you're getting involved and looking at a contract? Um, are you looking at a fine print for exclusivity rights when you are handing your work over to a gallery for a show? Are you looking at the commission split and just setting those boundaries for what you believe you want your arts business to be represented and how you want it to be represented? Because you're at the forefront at the end of the day. And so when artists have gallery representation, say that 10 times, at such a high caliber, do they have allies and advocates and agents to help them manage that type of workload? Do they have someone who's got their back? Because when we think of like performers and these other pop artists, who have told their stories, whether it's Beyonce, whether it's, Kehlani or, Tiana Taylor. Like, do they have a team of people that have their back to make sure that their well-being is number one? And if you don't, then it's so important to make sure you're getting second and third opinions sometimes on the level of involvement that's happening in your life, because your destiny can essentially be ripped from you. The way that I think Murakami was explaining is like, it almost feels like it's no longer his, that he has created this brand, but along with a lot of other people. I mean, one of his first big breaks was the Louis Vuitton collaboration, where he was adding his brand artistry onto bags, and it fucking blew up. It went wild. But that also can steer you in the direction of the brand and maybe separate you from the artists. And I wonder if he's thinking about that now. Like, what sort of missteps took away the excitement or took away the inspiration in a way from the just being who he is, like this weird kind of quirky guy who makes these kind of happy funky things. And he also had explained, like, in the outside world, like, to everyone else, like, his facade is happy interviews and wearing funky weird things. I just literally a couple of minutes ago saw a video of him in an interview, and he's like, look at this stupid hat that I'm wearing. Look at all these stupid things that I'm wearing. And it's possible what he means, just in terms of like a language barrier, is that he might mean it's like weird. And weird is like very cool to our society these days. It's what gives him so much attention, actually. And that's the business side. That's kind of what you do when you are, at this point of fame, in a way, right? It's not only for musicians, it's not only for people who are influencers or in reality television who are being treated this way. And so, at what point in an artist's career do they become just a workaholic to appease bigger institutions? And what are bigger institutions doing to maintain their artist's identity? Or what are artists doing to maintain their own identity? Because it can become all business to a certain extent. Like, people in Japan do really feel like he's a fucking sellout. And they feel like he's taken their culture and just turned it into, a money-making machine. And in some ways he has. But I want to really, what kind of took me aback was the cry for help in this video, and just his breakdown. It was a mental breakdown. And that's a really fucking dangerous place to be as a quote unquote celebrity, right? We don't realize the point, we don't even realize the point where people closest to us are having mental breakdowns. We oftentimes are so self-involved, and not for any bad reason, just because we're so fucking, there's just so much going on constantly, family and work and trying to get your ass into the studio and trying to get a fucking workout in, and we don't realize that there are people who are like suffering internally. And I think that's what hit me the hardest while watching this, was like his cry for help to not to the world, but necessarily like you could see the internal struggle as to like how far things have gone, and he's like, I have to fucking make these 130 paintings in a year, and like, how do they expect me to do this? And he says, how do they expect me to do this? And I wonder how that conversation went down, right? Like, I wonder what his response was. I wonder if he just took it on the chin, or if he negotiated that number, or if, there was an advocate sitting there, or an agent, kind of accepting the challenge. And it's not like he's out of ideas, but it definitely felt like there was an internal struggle of, his mind not necessarily matching or meeting how much his body could take. He describes the way he looks, and that he's an ugly man, and that he's, there was just so much self-hate that to me, it was concerning and triggering in a way where I'm like, wow, I really hope that he's fucking okay. I hope that he, God forbid, does anything dangerous to himself. And we always have to, these are things that as a society, we need to take really fucking seriously, whether it's fucking mental health awareness month or not. We need to understand that these things happen every second, every millisecond of the day. And the cries for help can be loud, and they can be really quiet. And so I just wanted to kind of, share my thoughts on this. If you have seen the video, I'd love to hear what you think about it, and have a dialogue about it. Maybe there are things that I read wrong, or I'd love to see it from someone else's perspective, because it was like a 24-hour kind of viral thing, but there's so much more to this video that should not just be pushed to the side. So if you have any thoughts, please DM me on Instagram at Terry Froman. And I hope that this Terry Talks episode was insightful, gave you something to think about as per usual. Starting a podcast is not an easy thing. It's pushing me to be more vulnerable about my like inside thoughts, in a different way than I would on Instagram. If you follow me, it's like balls to the walls on Instagram, and just like talking about my offers and talking about how I support artists. But this is like a different avenue for me to talk about the world and how I really feel about shit that's going on. Every day there's something new to talk about. So thank you for listening again, and I hope you tune into the next episode. Please share this, please comment down below, and make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on another episode. Peace out, folks. Thanks for listening to another unfiltered episode of Terry Talks. I've also got some free resources on my website that will help make your life a lot easier as an artist in business. You can also check out my services or apply to work together. Before you go, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and sign up for my newsletter for more art industry information. See you on the gram.